Monster Hunter Stories 2 released at a weird time for the series. It wasn't the biggest Monster Hunter game and it certainly wasn't the loudest, but for a lot of players it was very special. With Stories 3 right around the corner, I thought it was only right to look back on this game, the positives, negatives and everything in between. My name is Zenny, please join me as we take one last look at Monster Hunter Stories 2. Right off the bat, this spin-off series will probably catch Monster Hunter players off guard. While it shares the franchise's charm, it takes things in a completely different direction. The Stories games are turn-based monster collecting JRPGs. You still have the traditional combat in the sense of skills, items and preparation, but battles revolve around a rock, paper, scissors format. Turns out there's quite a lot of you that have never played one of these games before, so let me break down the combat. In any given battle there are quite a few considerations the player needs to make. First is elemental weakness. This works exactly how you'd expect. Fire beats ice, water beats fire, thunder beats water, so on and so forth. Monsters retain their elemental weakness from the mainline games, something that is a recurring theme throughout the game. The hunter also needs to think defensively here since armour carries its own elemental weaknesses as well. It doesn't play a huge factor throughout the general playthrough, but certainly in the late game it can make all the difference. Next we have weapon type weaknesses. In Stories 2 there are 6 weapons available. 2 slashing weapons, 2 blunt weapons and 2 piercing weapons, of which you can equip 3 at one time. Each weapon has its own strengths and playstyle quirks, but in most cases you're going to want one of each damage type, and here's why. During battle you can target different parts of a monster's body, and each part has its own resistances and weaknesses. In a general sense, a tail is more likely to be weak to slashing damage, while something like horns or a shell would be more susceptible to blunt attacks. Using the correct weapon not only deals more damage, but also builds progress towards breaking that part faster. And breaking parts can grant additional rewards, prevent or interrupt certain attacks, or completely shut down some of the monster's most dangerous options. For example, when Legiana takes to the air, it gains access to stronger attacks. By targeting its wings with slashing damage, you can knock it out of the sky and open it up for a big damage opportunity. Next, one of the most important mechanics in Stories 2, which is the move type matchup system, or the rock paper scissors part of things. In this game we have 3 move types: power, technical and speed. Power beats technical, technical beats speed and speed beats power, thus creating the triangle of combat. Each monster naturally favours one of these move types, and this influences how they behave in battle. If you counter an enemy that's targeting you with the correct move type, you'll deal more damage and take less. If you command your monster to use the same correct move type against the same target, you'll trigger a double attack. Doing so completely negates that particular attack from the enemy. And of course, this system works both ways, so getting it wrong can be very costly. And this is where things start to get complex. Learning, guessing and adaptation. On your first encounter with a monster, you're often forced to make an educated guess. A large brutish monster might lean towards power attacks, while a smaller, nimble foe might favour speed. But that's not always true. Sometimes it can be a complete coin flip, and trial and error is somewhat unavoidable. You will take extra damage, and sometimes even faint, simply by losing this guessing game. To make matters worse, monsters can enrage mid-fight, changing their preferred move type entirely. A power-focused monster might suddenly start using speed attacks, and there's no immediate way to know that that's coming unless you fought it before. Much like mainline Monster Hunter games, the solution to this is preparation and patience. If you don't know what the enemy is about to do, you can play defensively using buffs, set up guards, use items, and observe the monster's behaviour. This will help you get through that guessing game, allowing you to then counter accordingly. Once you understand the monster's patterns, the combat becomes far more strategic rather than reactive. And finally, along the lines of combat, we have kinship skills, the game's ultimate attacks. Landing attacks throughout a fight builds your kinship gauge. From there, you can unleash a powerful kinship attack immediately, or continue building up the gauge to level 3 for even more damage. Your AI companions work in this same way, and by coordinating kinship skills together, you can deal massive burst damage and completely swing the fight in your favour. And all of that is just the foundation of Stories 2's combat system, the thing you'll be spending most of your time with. But this game has much more depth than just battling. The world around you isn't too exciting to explore in all honesty. While it does have a nice range of biomes with their own unique charms and vibes, there's also a lot of dead space in between everything. However, this space is used to scatter around a very important system, monster dens. Entering a den will reveal a small instance level ranging from a single corridor to large branching dungeons. Lying in wait at the end of one of these dens is a nest the player is able to search, and this is how you get monsters off your own. Go hatch these back at camp to get your hands on a brand new companion for the party, but much like the battle mechanics, there's a decent level of depth here. When you go to find your egg, you often have multiple searches at the given nest, randomizing the result each time. Not only will this allow you to hunt for a specific monster, but also the quality of what's inside. There's 3 main factors here: rarity, smell, and weight. These factors influence the passive effects, stats, and moves your monster will hatch with. If we compare it to Pokemon, this would be like having a better chance to hatch something with a hidden ability and perfect IVs. Rare dens can be found in the world, which increase the chance of finding rare eggs with improved potential. And even when all said is done, there's then multiple mechanics that allows you to transfer genes from one monster to another. You can improve existing slots, or even line up your passive skills like bingo for additional passives. What I'm getting at here is that the player has ultimate control over their team and the ability to truly craft their perfect team member with enough planning. So not only do you have a great battle system in place, but also the tools to strategize around it. But enough of that, how about we move on to a lacking point with Stories 2? And as ironic as it sounds, it's the story. And let me preface this real quick by saying, don't let my opinion take away your enjoyment. If you found the plot and dialogue to be fun and charming, great, please continue feeling that way. For me though, this is one of the game's major shortcomings. Look, the overarching story is fine in essence, but its delivery is quite bad. It's the classic there's a big bad enemy in the area, so we need to go stop it so everyone acknowledges us. We then get given some kind of reward or knowledge as to where to go next, and so we move into a new area with a new big bad. Interspersed between is quite uninspired dialogue and characters that are just okay at best and insufferable at worst. I'll spare specific plot details with you in case you plan on playing for yourself, but it all feels very tailored for a young audience, which in fairness is probably what the Stories games aimed to do. For me though, it's just with how strong and complex the gameplay mechanics are, it was a major letdown to see the story fall behind. But feel free to disagree with me in the comment section on this. It is very subjective after all. While we're on the subject of criticism, there's a couple other points I should probably touch on. Pacing issues and repetitiveness hit me during both my original and recent playthrough. As just mentioned, the story will see the player going through the same motions over and over, and while the combat is fun, the time in between usually isn't. Very little grinding is needed to stay on level, and farming for equipment is also quite quick. This left me in a position where I felt obliged to run from point A to point B without engaging with anything in between. Lacking quality of life features only pushed me in that direction too. Throughout the world and in monster dens, there is interactable environmental features that can act as shortcuts or lead to hidden loot. Different monsters are required to interact with these. Some can climb vines, others can smash through rocks. Providing you have the right monster in your party, interacting will automatically swap you to the relevant monster. However, the only way to swap back is by constantly pausing the game and navigating the UI. So if you've been riding around on a specific monster for any particular reason, you are constantly required to swap back and forth in menus each time you interact with these things. And eventually, I would ignore those environmental factors entirely and just take the long way around instead. But it is somewhat unavoidable in certain instances. Things like entering combat with the right party member. Even though on turn 1 you can swap your monster there and then, you still need to navigate the menus to do so, and that's my point. And this is where the new quick swap mechanic in Stories 3 is such a blessing, an immediate fix to the problem I'm talking about. And I know that's a one-off example, but there's quite a few of these slightly annoying choices that in isolation can be ignored, but stack up over a long period of time together. And realistically, those are my only complaints. The game is optimised well, it has a charming art style that's aged nicely, and the core gameplay is super in-depth. The community in general received this game very positively too. It's hard to find people who truly think it's a bad game. Then again, it's also very different. Just because you're a Monster Hunter fan doesn't inherently mean you're going to enjoy Monster Hunter's stories. Generally speaking, if you're a fan of JRPGs or even collection-based monster games like Pokemon, you'll probably have a good time. Moving into Story 3, we can see they've built on what was already good and improved on elements I found lacking like UI and gameplay interruptions. In short, if Capcom can deliver a strong story this time around, Story 3 has the potential to be something very special. And I'll be covering all of that here on the channel. So if you're still unsure as to whether or not you want to buy the upcoming game, please subscribe and keep an eye out for my day one videos. Thanks for watching.